So student accessibility services. So I really like the quote that they provided. Accessibility is the cornerstone of inclusion. When every student can fully participate, the entire educational community benefits. And that's certainly the belief I would have in terms of accessibility. So what does student accessibility services do? So the big one is they provide academic accommodations to students with permanent, prolonged, or persistent, and in some cases temporary disabilities. So similar to the experience you've had at school, there is an expectation that any disabilities that you have will be accommodated by the Educational Institute. So that results in the development of an accommodation plan, which is intended to reduce barriers and enable full participation in the learning environment. The key thing, the same as an individual education plan at high school, is that the accommodation plans are highly individualized and are developed in collaboration with students based on medical documentation regarding functional limitations. And that's a very big one there. So it's not simply because you have a diagnosis of cerebral palsy that you're going to get accommodations. It has to be specific to what are the limitations that result from your diagnosis. And so in terms of the documentation, they're really looking for that information on functional limitations. One-on-one support, and this is in terms of developing your accessibility plan. They have specialists who know a great deal about disability and accessibility. They meet with you when you register with the student accessibility services. So in terms of other universities, you may start by going onto that website. You may set up an appointment when you're going for a visit, or you may be setting up to have a first meeting nearer to the start of term. So the SAS services create your accommodation letters to send to your faculty, offers learning strategy and disability advising supports, can refer you to other services. So when you're getting to the accessibility office, it's not just about the academic accommodations that they need to share with the faculty that's going to be presenting to you in your course, but they're also needing to connect you with other services that might be helpful. They may not be able to provide everything, but they're likely to be able to give you community connections. So for example, if you end up having to use accessible transportation that's provided by that city or town, they would be able to give you the connection to it, although they might not be explicitly responsible for it. Services and supports that are provided at Ontario Tech U, accommodated testing arrangements in our test center and virtually, alternative formats of course materials, assistive technology, training and support. So that's especially important if you're using some new types of technology. Note-taking assistance, ergonomic equipment, depending on what you need in terms of seating or other supports. One-on-one support if you need to actually have somebody that is with you on throughout the class. Peer coaches to help with scheduling, study skills and more. Sign language interpretation if that's what you need, placement accommodations, and connection to other campus supports, including the Student Learning Center, Career Services, Student Mental Health Services, etc. Again, one of the things we really need to bear in mind is that where in elementary school you may have had modifications to your program, at a university and college level there is no modification of the program. You are doing exactly the same as everybody else, but what the accessibility services are doing is providing you with the supports to be successful. So what's the differences between high school and university? So at high school, we have our IEPs and we go through the IPRC process. Teachers manage the accommodations. Teachers are often aware of the diagnosis and have access to your Ontario student record where there may be some documentation related to your needs. The curriculum, as I said, may be modified, and so that you may be doing somewhat less in terms of the expectations that other students are doing, or you may be working at a different grade level. That is not going to happen at university or college. And parental involvement is very much a big component of the special education system at high school, so it'll be the parents that attend the meeting. So now we're looking for you to be much more independent when you go to university. Yes, you will have an individualized accommodation plan, which will have been developed with information you provided, but the student is managing the accommodations. It's up to them and to know when to disclose and what to share, and to understand how to manage their supports depending on what they are. The diagnosis is confidential and teachers are not going to have access to it. The curriculum is not modified. You're doing the same as every other student in the class, and there is an expectation of increased student independence. And this is one of the things that I've heard when we've had students that have started university. They said they wish they'd been more prepared to be independent. So taking care of knowing how to ask somebody to help them. So if they have somebody that helps them with their personal care, being able to direct that care, so that if you have an attendant, you are comfortable with providing those instructions, and all the other things that go along with being independent. So it's really important that the more independent you can be before you leave high school, the less of a transition it's going to be to university. Accommodations. So what we're talking about, individualized, disability related, and based on medical documentation, particularly of the functional limitations. They do not create an advantage. They do not modify the university's academic standards. They do not alter the core requirements or outcomes of a program, may be updated if needed, and are informed by the Ontario Human Rights Commission policy on accessible education for students with disabilities. And so, as we know, under the Ontario Human Rights Code, disability is recognized as one of the groups that needs to be accommodated, and the Ontario Human Rights Commission developed this policy on accessible education for students with disabilities. So in this case, it aims to help students who register with the Student Accessibility Services to prepare for their first year. Again, if you're going to the Ontario Tech University, there will be dates listed on the site. By attending the summer transition program, students can connect with other registered students registered with the accessibility services. They can learn more about their services, meet the staff and student coaches, learn about other resources offered through Student Life, learn about residence, financial aid, and important information to ensure academic success. Parents and guardians are welcome to attend. Registering with them. So again, don't know whether this is going to be exactly the same for all universities or colleges, but you're looking at sharing the certain types of information. There's a student intake form. It looks like it's an online form that can be completed. You need to be able to provide the disability documentation. For example, psychoeducational assessments, ASD assessments, neuropsychological assessments, OSAP disability verification form, and the SAS documentation of disability form. You submit the documents via email to the Student Accessibility at Ontario Tech CA, and attend an intake appointment with accessibility and accommodations specialists. And again, depending on where you're going, it might be in person or it may be a virtual meeting. And the parent and guardian is welcome to attend with student consent. Test Center and integrated services. How does the Test Center help you? Mission is to ensure that you receive the necessary supports and accommodations for your quizzes, midterms, final exams, and online assessments. So in terms of assessments, on-campus assessments, suitable spaces can be provided that meet your specific types of accommodations. And the dedicated invigilators will supervise the entire process and are available to provide immediate support as required, ensuring a smooth and comfortable testing experience. The online assessments, they'll connect with your course instructor to ensure that your typical time-based accommodations are applied, and that extra time will also be applied to Canvas for you. What is the first step to accessing accommodations in post-secondary? So the first steps are contacting your college or university student accessibility office, providing documentation related to your disability, and if in the case of TechU, they've got information on their website, and I think you will find that is true for most colleges and universities. Thank you very much for being here. I hope that the information that was shared was useful to you.